Hello everyone, we're back with another Let's Play Sierra Games, except we're not discussing a Sierra game. We're actually going to go over a game called Noctropolis. And this game, don't worry, I will get back to Sierra games eventually. This game, however, is a game that I remember from my childhood. The way I originally came across this game is back in the day. My friend Chuck, who I regard as probably my best friend. I've known him since the 4th grade, and that was many years ago. Early 80s, like easily early 80s, I've known this dude. And he had a better computer than I did, which is crazy because he's not super into technology. Barely recently, not too long ago, got a smartphone. It's probably been a couple years now, but yeah, even I was originally against getting a smartphone because I didn't want to get an iPhone like my wife. I was happy with my little flip phone until I took a dive into the ocean playing with my dog. So anyway, back in the day, he had a better computer than I did. Noctropolis would not run on my Tandy 1000 SX that I had, and so he purchased the game because back then both he and I were really into comic books. Right up until 2020, I was still an avid collector. He had stopped collecting long before I did. I've talked about it before in 2020 with all the issues with my wife's health and all that stuff that happened. So that's why I stopped collecting in 2020. But back then, we were both avid collectors of comics, and so in reading the description, Noctropolis in the adverts of magazines talked about how you are this character who slips into a comic book world and you become the hero. So that was very appealing to both my friend Chuck and I. We thought, okay, cool. And it's an adventure game too, so I was already at this age very much into King's Quest, Leave Shoot Larry, Police Quest, those early Sierra games that came out 1994 and prior. And so in playing this game, even back then, we were kind of blown away because it does have aspects, it's obviously very digitized like what you see here with the comic panels, but it does have aspects of FMV also, which is the full motion video capture. And even the characters actually, you'll see segments where it's FMV, where a little window pops up and it's them with the FMV video talking. But even the main character, as he's moving around the screen, that was done through FMV, then digitized into sprites. So it reminds me very much of Sierra's Phantasmagoria 2, because Phantasmagoria 2 had, the guy, and why I'm saying Phantasmagoria 2 and not just the first Phantasmagoria, is because similar to Phantasmagoria 2, it goes into like a weird thing. Phantasmagoria 2 gets very, very weird. If you've never played it or have not watched my playthrough or anything like that, you should do that. It's either play it or watch my playthrough. Phantasmagoria 2 is really, really unusual. And in another way that this game is very similar to Phantasmagoria 2, aside from the FMV that's kind of captured with either a green screen in the back, which was what Phantasmagoria 2 did, this actually pixelizes the back, so you have the character moving through FMV that's been turned into sprites, but the back is definitely like digitized art versus a green screen, which is what Phantasmagoria 2 did. But in the way, and why I'm saying Phantasmagoria 2 so often in comparison to Noctropolis, is Phantasmagoria 2, I thought, was a really, really fun game. Right up until the end. Right up until the end of Phantasmagoria 2, I was actually enjoying the game. It was a little wild, it was a little crazy. Some of the stuff that was happening was really, really out there. But that was okay. It's kind of expected once you kind of get the vibe of, okay, this is nothing like the first Phantasmagoria, which basically focuses on spirits in a haunted house. This goes more into like demonic possession and psychosis, and then this extra plane called Plane X or something like that. Phantasmagoria 2 to me was great right up into the end. Right at the end, it just got so freaking weird and so out there that a lot of it, so there was a FMV where we just saw the succubus. It just got so wild and weird that it seemed very disconnected from the rest of the story. And I feel like Noctropolis does the same thing. Right up until the end of this game, I would have easily rated this game probably like an 8 or a 9. Now, I will say, as a former avid collector of comics, if you were to look behind me, you would see boxes and boxes of comics. I probably have well over 10,000 comics in my collection that I probably need to do something with eventually. But being a avid comic reader, like, you expect, you expect stories to be over the top and stuff like that. A lot of it is over dramatized, and that's what makes it a comic, But at the end of Noctropolis 2, our villain, after he reveals himself, which is painfully obvious who he is, if you do not realize who he is by the time you get to the end, you've not been paying attention to the game. But as he gives his dialogue and his reason and just how he, even how he acts, seems so abundantly over the top. Now, if you play Noctropolis, and as you go talking to different characters, like when you talk to the guy who's at the newspaper stand, for example, like, his accent is really, really over the top, and just how he talks is really, really like, hey, that's what you're doing there, what you got going on? It's very, very like, wow, that's wild. And I have a feeling the directors, if you will, of Noctropolis probably said, have fun with it, be a little bit over the top and, a little dramatic to give it flair and, pop interest versus, oh yeah, I've seen that before. That's kind of boring compared to, yeah, I've seen that before, what you got? So, they probably did that type of stuff on purpose. But the ending of this game, holy crow, it was, reading the dialogue was almost painful to the point, and then his acting on top of it going with that dialogue. And this isn't a knock on the actor. He was handed a script and said, do something with this. But it does feel like all the way up to the end, they kind of had a plan for Noctropolis, and then they just weren't sure how to write the ending. And it's very similar to how you can have an ending that is very similar to another one. So there is, I want to say the movie's called Deja Vu. I'm pretty sure it's Denzel Washington that's in it. He has like this dream about this boat full of people being blown up, and he does all this stuff to try to prevent it, and at the very end I think he wakes up and it all turns out to be a dream, like this whole deja vu thing. I literally walked out of that theater very, very, very upset of how that movie was written. It just felt like such a letdown at the end. But then when you compare it to another movie that has a similar kind of concept of Sixth Sense, when you find out Bruce Willis's true fate in that movie, like, the whole movie theater went silent. And, I think the only sound you heard was the sound of people's jaws hitting the ground when they realized what happened to Bruce Willis. And all of this dialogue that suddenly makes sense, that seems so casual and normal, is now suddenly a shocking reveal. So you can do a situation that seems right. So had they, I don't know, kind of maybe focused more on how to end it and not be so over the top. Because even the main villain's costume is like over the top, big shoulders, it's all golden, and he's all shiny, and I don't know. For me, it was a little too much. Like, I loved the game right up into the end. Very similar to Phantasmagoria. Anyway, going into the game. So, we talk to a girl, and we answer the questions correctly, and we get this coin from her. And when you flip it, it teleports you basically into the comic world. So we are now in Noctropolis, and this is the newspaper guy that I was talking about, that if you watch my non-commentary, you'll actually hear him talking. When I do commentaries, what I do is two things. A, I speed up the video. So I think my original playthrough was like maybe 3 hours, I think. And so what I do is I speed up the video because I know I cannot talk to the game for 3 hours. That's almost for any game. Like, even games I'm super passionate about, I don't think I could ever talk to the full playthrough in that way. And so the other thing I always do is I lower the volume so that essentially you just hear my wonderful voice during the commentary version, and you may hear a little bit of the music and a little bit of the background. But a lot of times what I'll also do is to do a background, so it's not just my amazing voice that you're hearing and going to sleep to at night. I'll also usually use music from the game to kind of drop into the background very softly. So even the parts where, for example, if I'm not talking, what I'll do is, and then I'll take that segment and I'll speed that up even faster. Usually not so fast that you can't tell what's happening, but I'll try to speed it up so the amount of dead air is minimized. But the reason I drop like sometimes music very softly in the background is indeed if there is that kind of dead air that's kind of there for 5 to 10 seconds, you at least are hearing something pleasant, like the soundtrack very gently playing in the background versus just silence or sped up music that might be happening because the video is being sped up. So a couple things to talk about with this game is the interface took some getting used to. So I think I originally started playing Noctropolis, but I wasn't recording it or saving it or anything like that. I think I got it from Steam and GOG. I think I got it from both. It might have been just GOG. Now I can't remember where I got it from. But when I first got it, when I first saw that it was on, either GOG or Steam or both, I was so ready to play it because it just reminded me again when my friend Chuck and I had played it. And so I started playing it and I was like, this interface is really, really clunky and really, really hard to get used to. And so I'm thankful that I wasn't recording it when I first bought the game because it took a lot of getting used to that interface. So when I played it actually for the channel this time, it was like many, many, many months later, or possibly even years later. And I was more used to the interface. So it reminds me very much of the Gabriel Knight 2 interface in a way, where you right click to get the menu to do stuff. Some of the things that I actually like about their menu interface is when you right click to talk to someone, basically everything you kind of learn, whether it's a person, a place, some kind of like little bit of information, when you right click to talk to them, all of it is available on that talk menu. So like if you find out about, one of the villains by the name of, Flux, we'll say, you can click, and then anyone you talk to, you don't have to remember that his name is Flux. There would be an icon in the talk icon that allows you to basically click on that. And they may say, hey, I don't know anything of what you're talking about. But the fact that you don't have to try to remember all these little details, like everything your character learns is something that he can basically ask about. And I thought that was a cool thing to do, because a lot of times you might, in other games, you might learn something, and then as you go to talk to other people, they may have information for you, but if you don't remember who it was, or what the name of this place was, or if it is at all significant, you may never ask this other character this information, and they may have just little bits of information for you. So I thought this interface method of being able to right click and have all the people's faces and like the little icons to say, oh, this is this place, and I can ask them about it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's a club down the street or whatever. I thought that was a nice way to make the interface very easy and very quickly be able to gather information. And the cool thing that I really liked is if you learned something new from someone else, you could easily basically go to the map, teleport, and just go around to all the people that you know that you can talk to, and basically click those icons to see if you can get more information. So right now, we're still our average Joe dude who's been pulled into the comic book world. We have not earned yet the heroic title of Darkshier, who is the hero from the comic. Stiletto is Darkshier's partner in the comic that we saw at the very beginning. She's the attractive blonde woman. In the comic, at the very beginning, we also see a number of villains, right? So there was a villain, he's got the long hair, kind of like the trench coat, the cool 90s look that was very, very common in the 90s, especially in comics. A lot of superheroes had long hair, or a lot of male superheroes had long hair with like long ponytails. Like if you've read, I don't know, Strike Force, or any of those Image comics, a lot of those characters had long hair, ponytail, and stuff like that. So that's kind of who Desperado kind of looks like. He's got this long trench coat, long blonde hair, and in the comic, he and Darkshier, who is the hero, are fighting, and Darkshier basically kicks him off the roller coaster, and he basically plummets to his death, and he is basically impaled by some wood. And so we actually never see Desperado as one of the villains that appears in the comic. Or, I'm sorry, in the game. Because later in the beginning, if you would have saw the main villain, Flux, who's all cloaked, and if you don't figure out who he is before you actually find out who he is, you're missing something. He has a number of villains around him, and these were all Stiletto's villains, or I'm sorry, these were all Darkshier's villains that he has gathered around him and who he has freed out of prison. So one of the other villains who does not appear at that table is a woman who we see in the comic part of it, who is named Widowmark. Widowmark also, unfortunately, plummets to her death. Like, she literally falls to her death in the comic. So, and that comic that you're reading is the final issue of the Darkshier series, and that's, you know, you as the main character are upset that Darkshier is coming to an end, and they're kind of wrapping up all these storylines, and so they kill off Desperado and Widowmark in the final issue. However, the ones they do not kill, I always keep calling him Dreamer, but it's actually not Dreamer. His name is Drelmer, and he's a guy who's telepathic, and he basically manipulates people's minds and stuff like that. The other one is a villain by the name of Master Macabre, and he's essentially the mad scientist, you know. He's basically, I cut pieces apart from different people, and I make kind of like a Frankenstein kind of thing. And then you have the Succubus, who is, just like what the story says, or even in lore, the Succubus is basically a demonic seductress. And so she's this very attractive, sexy, evil kind of woman. And we saw her very briefly in the first FMV where she bares her fangs and stuff like that. The next one we see in there that's among the table is someone by the name of Top Hat. She's a female, basically psychotic kind of magician. And so she does, you know, she throws knives and stuff like that, which, as our character will soon see. And another villain was a guy by the name of Green Thumb. And he basically controls plants, creates toxins from plants, and does crazy stuff like that. He's very much similar to a very, very ugly version of Poison Ivy from DC Comics. And then you have the main master villain, the one behind it all, a gentleman who's cloaked from head to toe by the name of Flux. Very similar to how Darkshier was cloaked. So that might tell you who Flux is. I might be spoiling it for you, but maybe not. Anyway, so here we are. We're now in the chapel. One of the things, speaking of this chapel, one of the things about this game, while I was rambling about the other villains, this game does have, at least I can think of twice right off the top of my head, where you have to essentially pixel hunt. And what I mean by pixel hunt is you have to click on a certain thing in a certain way to get it. So outside the chapel, you saw the gargoyle demon flying in circles, and if you try to walk in, he basically kills you, which happened to me, and then basically had to restart and start over. And one of the things you can immediately see while you're there is there's like wires over to the left side of the gate. So you know, okay, I'll go pick those up. So, you know, this is an inventory item to use. And then right at the right side of the wall, there is a small, basically, box, which looks like a electrical outlet. And sure enough, if you open up, that's what it is, and you can connect the wire to the electrical outlet, but you can't throw it. Which to me makes the most sense. You've got it charged, you just throw it. But no, you also have to click on one of the gate pieces, the metal rod of the gate, and a certain one only that will break. It's just not any of them will break. A certain one you have to click. So there is some pixel hunting as you have to go through each little gate, which is not super obvious as to what to do. And then you take that, tie it, and then you throw it at the gargoyle, and then that will kill the gargoyle, which allows you to come in here and talk to Father Desmond. Father Desmond is blind, but he is also on your side, and he explains essentially the Succubus, who is one of the villains, had trapped him here by setting up that demon from preventing anyone from getting in and anyone from getting out. So now that you've taken care of the demon, things should be a little bit better. And he basically tells you about Stiletto, and then you can go here to Stiletto's place. But as you can see, Stiletto is not really wanting to talk to you. You're trying to convince her that, hey, I'm the new Darkshier, you know, like I want to set things right. She wants nothing to do with you. Now, the game in this manner works very, very similar to Sierra's Heart of China. So Heart of China, and I would say even the dialogue boxes look pretty similar to Heart of China. If I remember correctly, Heart of China basically has like a little gray box around it with a brown thing at the top, and then the text is in black beneath it, but it uses obviously the Sierra font. But it works very similar to Heart of China in where you have dialogue trees you have to navigate through. And so a lot of it is just trying to figure out what the right dialogue is to say to whoever it is you're trying to speak to. So in this case, I'm trying to talk to Stiletto and convince her like, hey, I'm trying to do the right thing here. And so the dialogue tree, I mean, at least it lets you keep going back to keep retrying. But it can be taxing because sometimes, like, you know, you'll have an option of when you first talk to her, 3 things appear. So you try the first dialogue option, which opens up like another 2, and then you try the first one from that one, and then, you know, she says, get out of here. And then, so you go, okay, go to the first one again. Now try the second one from that second tree and see, okay, that one went one further, and you try one of those, and nope, that doesn't work. So trying to navigate the conversation tree can sometimes be a pain. And there are some times where you can fail, but overall you can usually just keep trying until you get the conversation right. This is another one where I wouldn't call it pixel hunting. It was just a lack of observation from me that above that center statue that there is someone actually positioned up there, like you can kind of see a head that's just below the TV. But I thought it was just shadow, because if you look at the statue to the far left, there's like some shadow around him also. So I'd walked in and out of that room several times without realizing, oh, there's actually someone up there that I can talk to and ask questions to. So I wish that was a little more obvious, like maybe the face not be shadowed and basically make it like an actual face that you can see. But yeah, there is another place that you have to pixel hunt, and if I remember to talk about it, I'll talk about it when we get there. And so now we're in the morgue, and what we want to do is essentially hide inside the coffin because we want to get smuggled to the next place that we're trying to get into, which is inside the succubus's base. This part with this guy, with this officer, this took so long to finally get by. And if it's not obvious, I've talked about it with my other commentaries, but if you're brand new, this happens to be the first video that you're watching of mine, you should go back and check out the other ones because you can listen to my amazing voice. If I only believed that my voice was amazing. But when I play these games, I do not use a walkthrough when I play them. And the whole point is basically like, I want to basically recapture, relive what it was like to play these games the first time before there was an internet. Yeah, you know, I was around before there was really an internet. Thanks. Back in the day, just to age myself, I used to be an avid person who used to log on to local BBSs, which is a bulletin board system, which is basically a computer that you would dial into, and it would have some software running like Renegade or WWI4 or some WW4, some people call it. And so before Sierra even used to run a BBS that you would have to log into to try to get hints, basically talk to people that way. I eventually even ran my own BBS out of San Diego for a while, which was originally Renegade, and then it became WW4 version. And when I moved to Tennessee for 2.5 years, I ran a BBS through there. And then when I left Tennessee and came back to San Diego, I continued to run the BBS for a while before, essentially before social media really took off. Like when Facebook and Twitter, now X or whatever it's called, when all those took off, like a lot of BBSs died because people just preferred using that form of platform for social media. But yeah, my whole point to that was I like playing these games to try to relive and recapture the struggles I had back then, and to see if I'm smarter today to figure out some of those puzzles. In some cases, I have learned a little bit, but in some cases I have not. Alright, so we have just encountered the succubus, and you can see down in the lower left-hand corner, we now have a timer. So we have just under 7 minutes to find a cure for the bite that we've been given, or we will die. The game ends. And very similar to essentially any Sierra game, you want to basically you want to click on everything to try to pick it up and see it, and if you can't, if you seem trapped, do exactly what I just did there and just try to move everything, start moving candles to see if that reveals a secret passageway or something like that. But yeah. And here we find the succubus's diary, and she talks about how she hates Desmond and how he held her prisoner, basically kept her at bay, and how she wanted her revenge for banishing her. So Succubus really has it out for our priest, Desmond. And she, even though we've beaten the gargoyle / demon that was outside, she doesn't give up. She comes back for Desmond in a little bit. And so when we go inside the chapel, we can see that Desmond is outside, so something is already different. And see, this is what I mean by the dialogue tree, response 1, 2, 3, or 4. And how it trails into another one. And you can see some water over there. Let's see. And she does talk about how she is going to blow up the church and basically, kill Father Desmond that way. And as we start moving stuff, we start discovering that we now have bombs here. And it's interesting because Noctropolis has several times where you can get an inventory item that you never use. For example, that bomb is never used. And what is also more interesting is when we encounter Top Hat a little bit later, she says, hey, go get this, I don't know what you want to call it, basically the thing that is in a telescope. I guess it's like a telescope lens, but it's for a huge observatory. So I don't know if that has a different name, but essentially a giant telescope lens. And so there was a succubus. We got some holy water splashed on her, and she fled, and there is Stiletto, who showed up to help fight her. But going back to the inventory of where you go get this lens for Top Hat, even though she captures you after you've done what she's asked, the inventory item stays with you, so that was weird. And then, so after the succubus is defeated, Stiletto shows up, and you basically have to prove yourself to Stiletto. So you kind of fight back and forth, which is pretty wild. But then, once you prove yourself to her, she basically shows you how to become Darkshier. And basically, that black liquid pool that's around is what heals you. So several times you will be wounded and need to retreat here to basically be healed. And so over on that panel, you can see that right panel is kind of open, which I failed to notice that time. But you can see this time Stiletto has her drink, but she's not cupping it in her arms like she was before. So she's doing a little bit better. So here she is back. So there are some people that I don't know if I was supposed to get more information out of them somehow. Like, she's one of them. Like, we get a little bit of information from her, but I don't feel like she lended to the story too much that I can remember. There's also someone else that's outside the theater / opera house. There is a, I'm just gonna say a lady of the evening, if you will, who's there, and the only thing you really get out of her is she flashes you, but not, no nudity. She's in it like a nightie and stuff like that, or whatever you want to call the sexy attire, lingerie, I guess you can say. But you never get really much out of her either, which maybe that's why, but it's rare that most games would put characters in there that have dialogue that aren't lending further into the story. You know, it's funny that on that street that we were just on, I tried to get into the Ritz and a few other places, but later on I failed to notice there is a side street area that I was completely oblivious to and missed a number of times. So we opened that panel finally, hindsight being 2020, and we are able to get the Darkshier costume. So there's a little panel on that door. If you click it, now we have the I guess you could say the cross, the symbol of the Darkshier. And you get a whole lesson about the elements and how they're split in the Omniverse. I do wish there was actually, and I don't have the original anymore because it would have been my friend Chuck who had bought the game. If there was a comic that kind of like a one-shot that was sold with this, that actually reveals a lot of this stuff. Because there seems to be a lot of lore in Noctropolis. Like as you talk to the woman at that house that I was just talking about who doesn't really give too much, you learn that her husband was a part of this thing, and he kind of disappeared after the accident, the event that essentially created this cloud cover over Noctropolis. And that's why there is this tower that's being built that is supposed to go above the clouds and harness the light or whatever. And so that's kind of what you're trying to figure out, is what is up with this tower that's being built. It's very unusual and very out of place. So I do wish there was something somewhere that basically broke down all the lore that is in Noctropolis. I just don't think the game sold well enough. Although, interestingly enough, is the developer, I believe it was, got the rights back to the source code of the original Noctropolis, and they actually updated the source code to C++ or whatever in 2015, I want to say. And then they were basically able to release it to modern machines. So that's how we're able to play it now. This is actually a recreated version from newly sourced code that was based on the original code of Noctropolis, which I thought was a cool little fact that I discovered. Yeah, I just double checked. So in 2015, Night Dive Studios acquired the rights of the game and was able to recover the source code from the original developer. The game's assembly code was ported with the help of the original developer to C++ to port the game to modern platforms. On September 3rd, 2015, the enhanced port was released to Steam. On 21st of January 2016, it was released DRM on GOG. So yeah, I probably do have it on both. But I probably bought it on GOG first, so I probably got it probably around 2017, 2018, probably. May have been after that too. The remastered game features full compatibility with remastered soundtrack, improved keyboard mouse support, with roundable keys button, and several bug fixes. And the removal of dead-end situations that would render the game unwinnable. So that's interesting. The new version takes out any dead ends. I don't remember any dead ends in the original, but I don't think, as I said, I don't think Chuck and I ever finished it. So interesting. And then Night Dive Studios released a Linux and Mac OS version of this in 2017. Players who pirated a copy of this version of Noctropolis will see their character imprisoned and the game over screen instead of the standard animations. That's interesting. Alright, and so we talked to this woman, and essentially what we are trying to do is get in through that middle door, but there's a few tasks that she makes us do first. Again, I was stuck here with this police guy, or this guard, for so long. For so long. It took so much to figure out how to pass him and get the information that I needed. Side note unrelated to the game. As I've already said in this commentary, I live in San Diego. Even though it is 7:08 p.m. at this time right now as I'm recording this, I have all my fans in my room turned off. It is summer because it is July. So I have all my fans turned off so that no or less amount of background noise gets picked up. Because I have a fan literally sitting on my desk. It's a small fan that I usually turn on to keep myself cool. And I also have a fan down by my feet that basically keeps either me or my dog that usually lays right in front of it cool. I have no fans on, and let me tell you, it is really, really hot in my room, which is kind of ironic because the scene that we're at is totally unintentional now that I'm looking at where we're at in the game. This scene here is because the air conditioning in the game, this guy refuses to turn it on or refuses to fix it. So the girl at the front desk says, hey, can you do something about it? And so we send Stiletto to basically go flirt with him, and then she just ends up punching him. And then we just need to press that button to basically turn on the AC, and then that helps move it forward. So that was actually unintentionally well-timed. And so now that we've helped her with the AC, we can go talk to Mr. Jenkins. And you will see that Mr. Jenkins is a little bit of a klutz with that clock of his. And so we're basically trying to talk to Mr. Jenkins to see if we can go to the top to speak with, I want to say her name is Miss Soho. I could be wrong on her name. But essentially we want to get up there and talk to her because she supposedly has some information about this newly constructed building that's being made. So now she steps away, and we can see the code she punches in. So now we know our way up there. So after talking to Mr. Jenkins, we can now make our way up. Which is funny, because when we go up to the top, the receptionist isn't to be found. So if she hit the code to go to the top, where did she end up? But that's neither here nor there. Alright, so we're still trying to find out about this mysterious tower called the Sunspire Tower, and her involvement in basically helping in its construction, but she refuses to basically explain who her clientele is and who is behind it. If you haven't figured out who it is and who the main bad guy is, and you've been playing this game, you are missing it. It should be pretty obvious. Like, it became very obvious to me, and this is with the fact that I know for a fact my friend Charles and I, or Chuck and I, did not beat this game. I think this is as far as we ever got, because what happens after this, I don't remember ever doing back in the day, back when Chuck first got this game. So I think the furthest we ever got was getting into this tower, but never figuring out what to do next. And I don't know if that's because we just gave up on the game, or if like another game came out like Phantasmagoria 2, or either. Because ironically, I played both Phantasmagoria 1 and Phantasmagoria 2 on his computer. I've already shared a fun memory I had with Phantasmagoria 1 in my Phantasmagoria 1 playthrough, so... oh, and earlier I was talking about where I totally missed that there is an area, like I tried to get into the Ritz where the newspaper guy is at, but over to the left you can see where these neon lights are, the pink-white neon lights are. I did not know that. You can see them flashing there. I didn't know that was actually a place you can go into. And so I actually ended up talking to this guy a few times. And he kind of alludes that, hey, the guy kind of just now goes to a bar and just basically drinks his sorrows away. And I couldn't figure out how to get to this bar. And little did I know, it's on that same screen. And it's right there. I feel like that is perhaps... that is the bane of... for me, some adventure games, is sometimes the path that you're supposed to take is not always clear to you. So, for example, I almost called it Echo Quest, but in Eco Quest 2, when I was climbing the tree, one of the veins that I talked about was you have to climb all the way up to the top of this tree, but where you click depends on whether or not you move. So you can even be clicking up and he won't go there. You have to click in a specific way to get him to climb up the tree. Same thing happened in the Telwinium. In the first Telwinium game, I felt like I was stuck. I couldn't move, and so I just got to a point where I was just randomly clicking, and suddenly he walks up, and to me that view was obscured by these rising stones that don't make it clear that there was a path there that leads to the graveyard. Once you see the graveyard, something triggers, then you go back, then the event starts moving forward. Same thing kind of happened here, in which it wasn't super obvious that I had to go to that bar to talk to the guy in there and get further information. But here we are. We're actually going to deal with Green Thumb next. As you can tell, this looks like a greenhouse, and what better place to find Green Thumb? Green Thumb was probably one of the easier villains to get by in this game, because when he traps us and stuff like that, and you basically get injected with, I believe it is some kind of poison or toxin from a plant, and you have a timer again, I got out of it fairly quickly. When I fought Top Hat, who is the magician, who I believe she is after Green Thumb, it took me a while to figure out how to actually getting captured by her was pretty easy. And then getting the telescope lens was, there was a timed event, so you kind of have to do this thing, but it was relatively easy. But trying to get into Top Hat's secret compartment, you can kind of see where there's this trap door, but getting down there, it took me a while to figure out how to get down there. And then hindsight, after figuring it out, I was like, oh, I guess that's sort of obvious. But yeah. So Green Thumb, easiest one to escape from by far. The other ones are considerably harder. Top Hat is probably a little bit harder than Green Thumb's, trying to find out her base and stuff like that. Escaping is easy, but trying to find out the base and where to go to next is where it got complicated. And then after her, I would probably say the mad scientist guy probably has the next most difficult, because you kind of have to make your way around a maze kind of thing. Dreamer, whatever his name is, he probably has the most complicated one, because his is pretty complex. It's this entire mind trip of trying to figure out these different things to do. And here's the woman I was talking about earlier, what I assume is a lady of the evening, because she offers services for coin, but you don't have coin, so there's nothing you can even pay her. Or if you can, I don't know how, I never figured it out. So she's just there to basically give very gentle conversation, and doesn't really add, that I could find, add anything to the story. She just keeps flashing her lingerie at you. And so this is Top Hat. So she teleports Stiletto over, and the two fight. And I like the cool FMV segments where they cut like that. And she uses a stupid trick to beat Stiletto. And then, so she basically threatens you as the new hero to basically go and get the telescope lens that's needed for this tower, or else she's gonna do something really bad to Stiletto. So if you happen to know what is up with this woman, if there is more to her other than that, showing her lingerie, let me know in the comments, because I cannot figure out what else to do with her. I know what I'd like to do. Hey! I'm kidding, it's a joke. Now, interesting fact here is I just walked right in there, and there's that spinning camera. Something's gonna happen where I get out of this spot and I have to walk back through. And the first time I walked through there, I didn't even really try to time the camera. I don't even think I noticed that there was a camera spinning in there, or that the camera would do anything had it caught me, but it does. Because you'll see when I leave and come back, I actually get caught by the camera. And see? So the second time when I go, I didn't realize that I had to time it with the camera. And so now we have like a little thing to get into the observatory. And this is one of those, I mean, I guess that camera's a timed event. There's another one with a spinning fan in a sewer when you're escaping Mr. Macabre or whatever you want to call him. So there is this timed one. It's kind of a pain because you have to dodge the 3. It's either 3 or 4 lights. It's 3. And so the way you want to move is to the telescope, to this, I'm going to call it the south wall, the wall closest to you on the screen, and then over to the stairs. I think I actually get lucky once and cross all the way across and actually make it across. And I also finally get smart and start saving each time I dodge instead of always trying to see. You're actually supposed to go to the south wall to get there. But the thing is stuck when you get there. So there's those serial numbers, but the latch is essentially stuck. And you can see at the base of the stairs there's something there to pick up. So you need to pick that up before you actually go to the latch. Now the interesting thing is when you pick up the lens from the telescope, and if you manage to dodge all the way down to just to the left of the telescope and then you get caught, if you get caught at the south wall or by the stairs, it'll throw you in jail and end the game. But even if you have the telescope lens and if you get caught at the base of the telescope, it'll put you at the front door and you don't have to try to dodge the light. It'll just put you at the front door to escape. I don't know why I was insisting to just try to walk across instead of just going the correct way, which I finally do. And so you'll see, you'll see it eventually where I am at the thing and I get caught. Even though I have the lens, it lets me proceed. See? So when I restored after getting caught at the left of the telescope, it put me right by the door, so I could literally just walk right out. And so now that we have the lens, what's interesting is she does this thing where she chucks a bunch of knives into us. But again, when I check my inventory, even though I'm here and she wanted me to get this lens, she never takes it from me. It stays in my inventory. So now, once again, we have all these knives in us, and now we have less than 7 minutes before we have to get to the dark water to heal ourselves. And so we ask this guy, hey, can you free us? And he spins us in a circle. It's not quite what I had in mind. And he finally says, you know what, take the knives out. And you fall to the ground. So you can pick up the knives, pick up a brick, and there's this panel here. You can kind of see these buttons, and I'm trying to press open thinking that you had to open this panel to unlock, but that's not the case. So first, before I try to figure that out, I'll go heal myself and then go back. It's cool that you can actually see the blood on the stage. So see, that was the lens that's still in my inventory. Alright, so we're still trying to see if we can find our way in. And so we've opened the trap door, and when I try to do go to, it doesn't let me down there. So the trap door's there, but I can't go down. So this confused me for a little bit. So I thought, okay, close it. Go maybe stand on the trapdoor and then throw the brick. And why that logically works, I don't know, because you have to wonder, how does Top Hat go down here? Does she throw a brick at the button every single time? Or does she have perhaps maybe a remote control, which makes more sense? I just thought that was weird. And so every time you do it, if you want to head back down, you have to grab a brick again and then throw a brick. And so we can kind of pilfer through, and when you move or close, you discover a secret panel. And that was pure luck. I was just trying to see if there was anything to search in the clothes, like a remote control perhaps, or something along those lines. And so we can see a couple of pipes, and a door is locked. So, let's see, there's the telescope lens. And so you can see something sitting on the pipe right there. And so screwdriver, we can unhinge it, and then there's bricks there. And so this, like I said, getting away from Green Thumb was pretty easy. Top Hat was a little more difficult. So there's a pipe there that you can turn, but it really doesn't seem to do anything. So, you know, you have to turn it in a specific order for certain things to happen. And again, that took me a while to figure out. Like, I struggled here for a while. So you can see how quickly I got away from Green Thumb, and figuring out how to move through Top Hat's area considerably harder. But we finally get through, and we burst through that door, and then we have some guys out here just sitting around this bonfire. And when you question them, you can ask them about if anyone's come through, and they will give you an answer if you give them something that is beneficial to them. So essentially, just like any CR game, when you pick up something, use it anywhere and everywhere until you figure out what it is. And in terms of dialogue, you want to, every time you find out something new, talk to people, see if they give you any new information that can direct you where to go next. Let's see, finally, I noticed that that is somewhere we can go. And here's the drunk guy who's super bitter and angry at the world. If I remember correctly, his story is that he was in on the Sunspire thing and then pretty much got removed from it. Oh yeah, and his building had burned down. The one that the guy was guarding, the officer just around the corner. And the company Dynatech? If you've gotten as far within my commentary, have you ever played Noctropolis? Is this the first time you've heard of it? Is through my channel? If you've ever played it, how far did you get? And did you need a walkthrough? How far did you get before you needed a walkthrough? Or did you potentially rage quit at times? At least it's interesting to know, having read that wiki page, that they did remove dead ends in the remastered version of this game when they updated the code. So that's kind of cool that they did that. I can imagine this game would be insanely more frustrating if they had left dead ends in there. But I am now insanely curious to try to get my hands on the original and kind of play through and see what those differences are and see if I find any of those dead ends. If you played the original and got to a dead end, let me know in the comments if you remember what some of those were, because I would be interested to find out, because it does seem like that this game is impossible to dead end at, because you can essentially teleport anywhere you need to go. So I can't imagine how you would actually end up in a dead end. And so you can see that I saved the save game as to where to go next. Just kind of trying to figure out, because I felt a little lost as I was playing this game. I felt like I'd talked to everyone, gone everywhere I can go, and nothing seemed new. So now we go to the butcher, and this took a second, but butchers often put fish in newspapers, and we got the newspaper pretty early in the game. So what you want to do is try to trade him for sausage for reasons you don't know yet, but since that's what he has everywhere, if that is supposed to be sausage, this meat place looks pretty questionable. You basically just have to give him the paper, and he'll say that he has use for it. So it gives you the sausage, and then you can go here, and then if you go here, you can use the hook to move some of the meat. And when you do, you'll find a hidden passage which will lead to Mr. Macabre, or whatever his name is. I am telling you, that butcher scene is pretty gruesome. And there you go. Secret passage. And there's Mr. Macabre, and he has Stiletto. And then you are knocked out with gas. So now you have basically 18 minutes exactly to try to figure out how to get out of Macabre's insane trap. And this took a while. You can see a couple things on there. There's tables and you can kick and move. But it's not super clear immediately what to do. So we kick over the beaker, which basically helps free Stiletto, and then Stiletto helps free you. And so Stiletto essentially stabs Mr. Macabre over there, and so we pass him. And then we end up in the really weird Christmas light kind of thing. You don't want to step in the glowy things, but you can pick up a little bit of it, but I think if you step in it, it is death. And so we can see a door over to the right. And so we are still on a timer where we have 15 minutes. And I believe you can just click through it and it'll eventually let you through. Because I'm pretty sure I did not time that. I just kept clicking until it let me through. But there is something to do with the bricks on the other side. But there is something to get here as well. So after you make that swing and break the wall, then you go here. I do believe I forgot to record part of this because I think I took a break. I went to go get food. And so I don't think I recorded where the pipe gets brought down. Yeah, so that part was not recorded. At least now with the new method that I'm recording with the NVIDIA, I now know what to look for to ensure that it's recording or not. So stuff like that, not recording that segment in which I got that pipe to fall, shouldn't happen again. And in case anyone's wondering, because I have played a bunch of, for a channel that's called Let's Play Sierra Games, the last few have not been Sierra games. Like I played the Telwinium Book 1, 2, and 3, which was fan-frickin-tastic. The folks of Powerhoof have released the Drifter, which is now on Steam. I think it's like $16 on sale currently. I think the normal price is $19, so I plan on picking up the Drifter to support Powerhoof, because Telwinium Book 1, 2, and 3 were all free, and so I would like to support Powerhoof just for the game of Telwinium. So I will probably also be playing the Drifter for my channel also. Because really I'm super impressed by the folks of Powerhoof, and the Drifter looks a little crazy. Looks like it's a pretty wild game. If you haven't looked at it on Steam, check it out. Look up the Drifter. It looks really amazing. Looks crazy. Looks wild. But if you're wondering if I'm going to play Sierra games, yes is the answer. So having finished Noctropolis, I was kind of thinking, what game should I play next? And I wanted to play a Sierra game because, again, it had been a while since I played an actual Sierra game for the channel. So I was looking, and I was like, I have Shivers 1 and 2. Now I've played both Shivers 1 and 2. I 100% am certain I've never beat either of them. So I started playing the first Shivers. Now, if you've ever played Shivers, it's different than your standard Sierra adventure game. It is the first-person perspective, and the riddles in the game are more akin to, I was going to say Myst, because Myst, it's got the same kind of feel and vibe where it's that first-person perspective and you're moving through. But Shivers probably reminds me more of The Seventh Guest and The 11th Hour. And more so that Myst, it's weird, you're on this island, there's a couple weird things you have to do. But overall, the island looks and feels quite peaceful. Whereas Seventh Guest, you're in a haunted house, and the puzzles are insane. They're like logic puzzles that are insane to figure out. Like you have a chessboard in so many pieces, and you can only move them so many times before it, you fail or whatever. So Shivers is modeled in that same method. So like one of the first puzzles that I encountered is there's these two different sets of gears that are different colors, and you can place them in this different pattern, and trying to figure out what that pattern was. And I'm sure that somewhere you're supposed to see a clue to see what it is. Whoa. And there was the unedited version, if you're watching the unedited version of Stiletto's breast, that caught my attention. Sorry. So, in the censored version, that is covered up by a black bar, because again, I never know if YouTube is how restrictive they're going to be. I didn't want to play or do a commentary on a game and have them yank the whole thing down because of 2 seconds of digitized breasts. So I made 2 versions just in case they yanked it down. Anyway, going back to playing Shivers, it is very much like 7th Guest, 11th Hour, if you've ever played any of those games. It has that weird, creepy vibe also that kind of more reminds me of 7th Guest and 11th Hour versus Myst. But in playing it, the whole point of the game is you eventually want to get into the museum. And I think I have about an hour of gameplay, and I still haven't got into the museum. I've been running around in circles trying to get in there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try to, well, since I'm struggling so much with Shivers, it's going to take me forever to do. Shivers will be like a secondary game while I play other games. So I started playing Willy Beamish, and Willy Beamish operates the same way of Heart of China, which, not a surprise, they're both biodynamics and very similar to this game. Sorry, we're now in the Dreamer or Dremlars area. That's what this whole tongue thing is. But it operates in the same way that you have your dialogue trees that you need to make your way through. And very similar to Heart of China, you can not dead end, you can actually end the game very, very quickly. So, for example, one of the first things that happens is you, as Willy Beamish, end up in detention, and you can fake that you're sick. If you can convince the teacher, she sends you to the nurse. And if you say the wrong dialogue tree to the nurse, you end up at the hospital, and then the doctor is crazy, and then that's the end of the game. So you can literally reach the end of the game within 5 minutes of playing Willy Beamish, which happened a few times. There's a few different areas where that can happen. So I am currently playing Shivers and Willy Beamish off on the side and struggling through both of those games, but enjoying Willy Beamish overall. Not a super huge fan because Willy Beamish is kind of a needy little kid that I just don't connect with. I'm sure I was a needy kid when I was his age, but now I'm like, God, this kid's such a pain. But the cool thing with Willy Beamish is it operates very much like Legend of Carandia Book 3, where as Malcolm you have your choices to give a good response, a medium response, or kind of like a jerkish response. But here we are, we're back in the Dreamlar thing. We have defeated the little demon that had the baby. We got the item here. And so now we're almost ready to get out of the dream segment. So you cut a door in the glass, make your way in. Knock that over, gather some of that. So then you put the pepper in there, and for some reason it gives you like this paintbrush thing, which, you know, no logic to it here, but you know, this part is not surprising because the whole perception of reality seems weird. So you paint this tower and make your way to the top. And there's an electric chair there, yeah, totally safe to sit in. But if you move that little thing, there's a little secret passage, and sure enough, this is where you'll find the Dreamler. And he basically knocks you off to your death, but you don't die. You just suffer grave wounds in the dream and awaken. And you kind of find out that that whole part probably didn't happen, that you were actually dreaming that whole part. So this is one of the spots where he talks about the manhole, but you can't quite get a hold of it, and you have to pry one of those bars. And then you can go down the manhole. And Stiletto says she'll wait at the top. So you kind of have to sift through the junk that is where the chairs are and kind of move things around. And you can just see I'm frantically clicking at everything. And then when you put the fire thing, or the wood into the fire, it opens up the panel and you go down here. And this looks so weird that everything looks so realistic. But they made the Phantom look so, like, animated from a cartoon. Like, that Phantom literally looks like he is from a Scooby-Doo cartoon, whereas everything else in the game has looked fairly realistic. And then he's going to tell you about the 4 elements and the betrayer and everything like that, and how they trusted the original Darkshier, trained him, and how he was betrayed. So Stiletto will stay and flirt. So we know we have to get to the top of the tower, just can't figure out how to get to the top of the tower. Figured it would be through that construction site, but apparently that only goes 1 floor up. So by using the numbers from the coordinates, then you can get to the top. But we're not to the top yet, because now we have to slide down the wire and do some extra stuff here. But we are almost to the very end. So you have to use the meat hook to slide. And as you make your way up, pretty much just collect anything along the way, even though some of it I don't think you use. So this part I was not a fan of. As someone who is an avid dog person, I did not like this part. So you put the sausage on the thing, and then the dog leaps for it, and it literally falls to its death, which I thought that could have been handled better. Like, why not taint the sausage with some kind of sleeping thing and the dog just passes out, just like every other game? Why do we have to have a dog fall to its death? And so there we are. This is Flux. You remember when I told you that his costume was over the top? You know, now that I'm looking at it, I think I see what it is. I, myself, was never a big fan of the Power Rangers, and that's what he looks like to me. It looks like he is the white/gold Power Ranger, and that chest piece looks like he has huge boobs. So you talk to him, and he talks about how he released all the villains. It was all part of his plan. He was the original Darkshier. Stiletto is a wash-up. You're a nobody. His light, he's going to absorb it all and become the ultimate being. That's why there's sun and flowers and the telescope lens that somehow he's using, even though it's still in my inventory. I will say the one thing I do like, though, is at the very end of the game, there's outtakes, and the girl who plays Stiletto has a number of outtakes. It's pretty funny. He has a number of outtakes also, which is what makes me think they probably told him, here's a script, be over the top, be crazy, because there's a number of times that he is clearly messing up his lines and laughing too much. So I think even he may have felt that some of those lines were really, really out there. So as you can see, I'm no idea what to do. I'm just randomly clicking. But you throw the coin down and then it summons the order. Who, in the end, basically apparently cuts his head off after you are imprisoned. So in the end, you don't even get to be the big hero. And then she asks, you know, what does the future hold? You say, I'm not sure. And then the new adventures of Darkshier. So the comic continues by Cygnus Comics, which is funny because the company that Roberta and Ken started with, that other person was called Cygnus. So it's interesting that, in a way, we now see a Sierra kind of connection, but totally unrelated. But here's those outtakes that I was talking about that you see during the credits, and I thought that was pretty cool that they did this. So I thought that was fun. So if you enjoy outtakes, definitely watch my normal playthrough. Ideally, you can watch the whole thing. That kind of helps my channel out. Or you can just skip to the end and see these weird outtakes. If you have not already, and if you are so inclined, I would love if you would click the old like button and click the subscribe. It helps the channel out. Monetizing it and stuff like that, trying to get what I can. If you've watched any of my commentary, I've already talked about this, but my wife in 2020 had an emergency health issue and she is no longer able to work, and I am the sole provider here, and finances are tight, which, as I said earlier, which is why I don't collect comics. A lot of my hobbies I had to drop because it is just my income now. So where I can, I'm making little money here and there on the side on top of my normal 9-to-5 job that I have. For example, I do some writing at DM's Guild. So I write like character backstories, and I've written a single adventure. It doesn't get me much. It's like maybe sometimes $20 every couple of months. Because I sell the backstories for like $1.50, I think, is the total I get out of it. Or I get 75 cents out of it because I get 50% of the commission. And then DM's Guild gets the other 50%. So wherever I can, I'm just trying to pick up a little bit of money. I recycle cans like crazy. And by recycle, I mean actually take them to a recycling center. So yeah, not joking when I say every little bit helps. So if you'd like to help out, please click the like and subscribe button if you have not already. If you know of anyone that enjoys commentaries or video games, share my channel with them, and hopefully they also click like and subscribe, and let them know, hey, this guy's really cool and he's really fun, and he could use our help. And I would truly, truly appreciate it. So, until the darkness claims you, may Darkshier always watch over you. Bye. Love you all.